Who is Israel according to the Bible? The meaning of the word Israel in Hebrew means to struggle against God. The first mention of this name is in Genesis 32, chapter 28. It says that God changed the name of Jacob to Israel, for as a prince he has fought with God and with man and has prevailed. This name was earned by Jacob for wrestling with the angel sent by Yahuwah and never giving up. Even as Jacob had his thigh dislocated throughout the tussling, he still persisted on wrestling with the angel until the angel promised to bless him. This was not the first encounter that Jacob had received by God. Before this, he had a dream where God spoke to him. In Genesis chapter 28, verses 13 through 14, it states that God is one day going to create a great nation out of Jacob and his descendants, and he was going to give them the land that he promised to their forefathers, Isaac and Abraham. In Genesis chapter 15, we see that Abraham had a similar dream to that of his grandson Jacob. In verse 18, it says that God made a covenant with Abraham and to his seed, saying, I am going to give you the land from this river of Egypt unto the great river Euphrates. This is no other than the land of Canaan. Now, seeing as Abraham had more than one son, it was at first questionable to him as of who would receive these promises by God. God made this clear in Genesis chapter 17, verses 20 through 21. God states, As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be established with Isaac. God reaffirms this covenant with Isaac in Genesis chapter 26, verse 3. It says, Sojourn in this land, referring to Canaan, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For unto you and unto your seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore to your father Abraham. Now, just as Abraham had two sons, Isaac also had two sons, Jacob and Esau. It would be none other than Jacob who would inherit the promises that God had made in a covenant with his forefathers Abraham and Isaac. Genesis chapter 35, verses 11 through 12 says, I am God Almighty, be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of you, and kings shall come out of you. And the land which I gave to Abraham and Isaac, to you I will give it, and to your seed after you will I give the land. So this nation was to be made up by the descendants of Jacob, who was the son of Isaac and grandson of Abraham. So before Israel ever became a nation, to be an Israelite or a Jew meant that you had to be a descendant of Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. The 12 sons of Jacob made up the 12 tribes of Israel, who was to inherit the land of Canaan. Genesis chapter 35, verses 23 through 26 gives the names of the descendants of Jacob. The name of the 12 sons were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, which the word Jew comes from, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. After Israel was established as a nation, this kingdom was later divided into two. The northern kingdom, which housed most of the Israelite tribes, was the first kingdom to be ripped apart. These Israelite tribes were to be exiled into slavery, never returning to the land again. The kingdom of Judah and all the tribes who dwelt in that portion were the last ones to be left standing in the nation of Israel. But they would go on to suffer the same fate of the northern kingdom, Israel. 2 Kings chapter 17, verses 19 through 20 says, Judah kept not the commandments of Yahuwah, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And Yahuwah rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of the spoilers until he had casted them out of his sight.
It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? That is the question I have for you.
Thank you. I'll answer that question.
Go ahead, I will help you.
After the demise of Solomon, we now have the northern and southern kingdom of Israel.
Yes.
So when we talk about Jews, Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews, they were Israelites.
Well, it's depending.
So minority cannot swallow the majority. We are here, we are the majority down here. So you are minority, and we are older than you.
All right, Maradi.
Now we can see, even based off history, that the word of God came true when he said that he will remove all of Israel out of his sight, including the tribe of Judah. The descendants of Israel were scattered all across the world. But did you notice something strange in that video? The person claiming to be a Jew, which is referring to the tribe of Judah, looked nothing like his Israelite brothers. Not to mention, this so-called Jew is trying to convert his Israelite brothers to be a Jew, which doesn't make sense if they are the descendants of Israel anyway. If they claim to be the descendants of the other 11 sons of Jacob, then how can they also be the descendants of Judah? It is very obvious that these two do not share the same forefathers, nor do they share the same genetic codes. The truth is, European converts had made being a Jew an ethno-religion rather than being a lineage that the Bible describes. Remember, being a Judean, aka Jew, simply means that you are a descendant of Judah himself, which is the son of Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. Likewise, being an Israelite simply means that you came from one of the sons of Israel. Now, if the so-called Jews of today don't share the same DNA codes as the Israelites, and they don't have the same forefather, that is Jacob, how then can we determine who truly is the children of Israel? The Bible helps us identify how the Israelites might have looked. Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. When Moses took his hand out of his bosom, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Exodus chapter 4, verse 6. Aren't you the Egyptian? Acts chapter 21, verse 38. He had hair like wool and skin like burnt bronze. Revelation chapter 1, verse 12 through 15. There are numerous other verses that describes how the Israelite people might have looked, but I won't mention them for time's sake. But based on the verses that we read in the Old Testament, we could see that the Israelite people were melanated, dark-skinned people. Whenever Israelites contacted leprosy, it describes it as having their skin turned white as snow. This means that they were not white to begin with. The Bible describes King David as being a melanated, dark-skinned man. 1 Samuel 16:11 through 12, it says, And Samuel said unto Jesse, Are all your children here? And he said, There remains the youngest. And he sent and brought him in. He was ruddy and of beautiful countenance and goodly looking. Now, if you search up what ruddy looks like, you'll see that it is a brownish, reddish color. A red heifer is an example of something having a ruddy color. This cow is brown, but it has a tone of red. There are black people in America who have the same tone, such as Malcolm X, Danny Glover, Red Fox. So melanated brown-skinned people with this tone are often given the nickname Red, just as David was described as. So based off the Bible, the ancient Israelites and Judeans would have been from anywhere from ruddy brown skin to a dark black skin tone. Isn't it rather interesting that the dark-skinned Israelites who are still in Africa look nothing alike the so-called Jews of today? But other than outer appearance, there's other ways that we can know who Israel and Judah truly are based off their history and circumstances in life. Remember, in Deuteronomy 28, God said he would scatter them and they would become cursed. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 6. For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom, that was overthrown in a moment and no hand stayed on her. So the punishment that the Israelites would have to endure would be greater than the punishment of Sodom. One of the reasons that is because these curses will go on to be generational. So no matter where the Israelites winded up on earth, misfortune was sure to follow, as God was very angry at his people for rejecting him. And the Jews will go on to receive the worst of this punishment, as you can see in Isaiah chapter 40 verse 2. Speak comfortably to Jerusalem and cry to her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received double for all of her sins. Yahshua the Messiah reaffirms what the prophet Isaiah spoke of concerning the Jews and their punishment. Matthew chapter 23 verses 33 to 36. Yahshua says, "You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore I am sending you prophets and sages and teachers. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Others you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah the prophet, who you murdered between the temple and the altar. Truly I tell you, all this will come upon this generation." Yeshua then goes on to say, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who killed the prophets and stoned those sent to you, how often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah.'" So it was Yahshua's hope that the Jews will learn from their past mistakes. He reminded how they've always been a stiff-necked and rebellious people against their God. They would kill the prophets and stone those that he sent to them. Yahshua knew that he was soon to suffer the same fate. Before Yahshua was crucified, Pilate offered the Jews a final ultimatum. Seeing as Yahshua did not commit any crimes according to Roman law, he left it up to his own people to judge whether they would want him to be set free or whether they would have a criminal be taken in his place. The Jews chose the man who was a criminal, and when Pilate asked what they wanted him to do with the Messiah, they said, "Crucify him." Pilate then replied by saying, "I will not be found at fault for the blood of this innocent man." The Jews, following in the rebellious attitude of their ancestors, responded by saying, "His blood be on us and on our children." Matthew chapter 27, verse 25. Now Yahshua had already charged the Jews with the blood of the prophets. As if it could not get any worse than that, they took it upon themselves to be held responsible for the blood of the Son of God. Now, after the crucifixion of the Messiah, his apostles went on to try to turn the hearts of the Jews. But the Jews treated them in the same manner. Acts chapter 18, verse 6. But when they opposed Paul and became abusive, he shook out his clothes in protest and said to them, "Your blood be on your own heads. I am innocent of it. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles." So at this point, you can see that the Jews have been warned about the consequences they will suffer for turning against their God, Yahuwah. The Apostle Paul warned them that they would not be found innocent for the judgment that was to come upon them and their children. Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 3-4, "Cursed be the man that obey not the word of this covenant which I commanded your fathers in the day I brought them out of Egypt." Jeremiah chapter 11:11, "Behold, I will bring evil upon them which they shall not be able to escape, and though they cry unto me, I will not hear them." Second book of Kings chapter 22 verse 16, "Behold, I will bring evil upon this place and upon the inhabitants, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah had read." Now this goes back to the curses of Deuteronomy 28. The year that these curses unleashed upon the people of Israel was none other than 70 AD. This is known as the Day of Vengeance that Yahshua spoke of in Luke chapter 21. When you see Jerusalem filled with armies, know that its desolation is at hand, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and them in the midst of it depart, for there should be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the sword and be led away captive into all nations, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now who was it that was taken as slaves to various parts of the world? Who fulfills this prophecy? Was the Ashkenazi Jews taken as slaves and shipped all across the world? Or did they migrate to the locations that they arrived to? As for Negroes, aka black people, they were taken into captivity all across the world. Millions of Negroes were taken in the Arab slave trade as well as the transatlantic slave trade. No one else's history matches up with the prophecy that was foretold by the Bible. Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a home-born slave? Why is he spoiled? Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 19. Your own wickedness will correct you, and your backslidings will rebuke you. Know therefore and see that it is an evil and bitter thing that you have forsaken Yahuwah, and the fear of me is not in you. Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 8. And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I have put her away, and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and also played the harlot. It is safe to say that the Israelites and their God Yahuwah left off on bad terms. Even the prophet Moses foretold that this would be the future of the Israelites in Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses 25 through 26. He tells the ancestors of the Israelites, after you have had children and grandchildren, and have lived in the land a long time, if you then become corrupt and make any kind of idol, doing evil in the eyes of Yahuwah your God, and arousing his anger, I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you this day, that you will quickly perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. So this is what took place in 70 AD. The words of Moses came true. Their temple was destroyed, and they were uprooted out of their land. All of these things were spoken of by the Old Testament prophets. Isaiah 29, woe to Ariel, the city where David dwelt. I will camp against you round about and lay siege. Yahuwah will visit you with thunder, earthquake, great noise, storm, and flame of devouring fire. So it was never the enemies of Israel that brought about their demise, but it was God himself who made sure it would come to pass. In 70 AD, the Romans surrounded and captured Jerusalem and razed the temple to the ground. The only site left was the Roman military camp. 60 years later, another rebellion occurred in the land of Judea, and this will be the final stamp of the Israelites being disbanded from their own land. Judea was renamed as Syria Palestina by the Romans. It is said they did so resentfully as a punishment to liberate the link between the Jews and the land, but really it was God himself who prophesied that this will happen. Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 4. And you, even yourself, shall discontinue from your heritage that I gave you, and I will cause you to serve your enemies in a land which you do not know. For you have kindled a fire in my anger which shall burn forever. So Judea being renamed Palestina was the beginning of the Israelites losing their heritage. Ever since 70 AD, the ancient land of Israel has been ruled over by countless nations. Words that Yeshua spoke in Luke chapter 21 came to be true, as Jerusalem has been trodden down by the Gentiles. From Rome, it went to the Arab Muslim Empire, who in a conflict with the Catholics had both held the land at certain times. Then the Ottoman Turks had gained control of the land. Following the decline of the Ottoman Empire, the United Kingdom had filled the void and conquered the land, as well as Jordan, and then you have what you have today, the Israeli USA Empire. You could search online of all the nations that have occupied the land over the years. Deuteronomy chapter 29 verses 28 through 29. In furious anger and in great wrath, Yahuwah uprooted them from their land and threw them into another land as it is today. The secret things belong to Yahuwah our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may follow all the words of this law. Ezekiel 36. You became the possession of the rest of the nations, and you were taken up by the lips of talkers and slandered by the people. Thus says Yahuwah to the mountains that have been forsaken, which become plunder and mockery to the rest of the nations all about. For when you came to the nations where you went, you profaned my holy name by saying of them, These are the people of Yahuwah, and yet they have gone out of his land. O house of Israel, thus says Yahuwah, I do not do this for your own sake, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which you have profaned among the nations where you went. The real children of Israel has lost their identity throughout the years, but today they are finally starting to regain back the knowledge of who they truly are. All praises be to the Most High and His Son Yahshua. God bless.